Now, reaction to the Capitol chaos, of course, has been pouring in from all around the country. We have team coverage for you tonight.
Rose Schmidt talked to lawmakers in Washington. Mark Stevens talked to a Capitol protester. And Victor Jacobo is in Madison, where state lawmakers had plenty to say.
But first, local activists are criticizing the response by Capitol Police. Brittany Lewis joining us live in Kenosha with the reason why. Good evening, Brittany.
One activist I talked to questioned why security measures like these barriers behind me and the authorization of the National Guard were made here in Kenosha ahead of the DA's decision in the Jacob Blake shooting, but not in place at the Capitol. Activist and radio show host Tori Lowe was in D.C. last summer for the March on Washington.
There were a lot of police, heavy police, around the celebration time because they knew that there would be a protest afterwards.
He says he thought there was a double standard from the level of police preparation and response at the Capitol in comparison to protests for racial justice.
I just thought it was a disgrace.
Reggie Moore, executive director for the Office of Violence Prevention in Milwaukee, says he would like to see an investigation into the law enforcement response.
It was clear that the response to the violence at the U.S. Capitol yesterday was completely different than the response that we saw to protests for racial justice across the country.
Jim Palmer is the executive director of the Wisconsin Professional Police Association. He says it's not uncommon for law enforcement to monitor social media activity and have an idea of what people are planning.
I think from a more of a law enforcement perspective, the lack of security measures that were in place yesterday is baffling and it's inexplicable. And I expect that there will be a full and thorough investigation, as there should be, so we can understand why what we saw yesterday contrasts so significantly to the measures that were in place last summer for the Black Lives protest that occurred in Washington, D.C. following the tragic death of George Floyd.
Now, according to the Associated Press, the head of the U.S. Capitol Police defended the department's response, saying officers acted valiantly when faced with thousands of individuals involved in violent, riotous actions.